What's up, guys? This is Lewis, back with another episode of The Development. And today I have a good friend, Brent McBeth, and he specializes in dancing for theater performance. Brent, how you been?
Doing all right, considering the times. It's a weird time to be a performer. Well, it's a weird time to be any profession, but theater performer especially because nothing's going on. So we kind of have to create our own art. Like, as you know, we have to kind of make up what we're going to do without the actual funding behind it and the opportunities to go with it. But doing fine, getting through it day by day.
Glad you're doing great. Just a brief history. I know Brent for quite some time now. We worked at a doggy daycare, and he's been doing this for quite some time. I saw one of his performance on what was it called?
So the theater company was Parallel Exit, and the show was called Exit Stage Left. They were out in the Queen's Theater.
Yes, Exit Stage Left, and that's when I first saw him perform, and I want to support him because I know Brent and he's been doing this quite some time, and it was a great show. Brent, tell us more about like what you do and everything.
Sure. So I was very lucky growing up. My parents put me in dance when I was 3, and I had this tap teacher who really inspired me to become a tap dancer. I loved it. And from the age of 3, I was always performing. I was always putting on shows for my parents in my bedroom. I was on the sidewalk, dancing around like Gene Kelly. And theater was always what I wanted to do. So I went to college for theater in Texas. And when I graduated, I started touring around the country in a show, and then I moved to New York. And primarily what I do is musical comedy, the funny old musicals with tap dancing. But when I came to New York, I also encountered this group called Parallel Exit, and they specialize in nonverbal comedy, slapstick, kind of Mr. Bean, Charlie Chaplin. And so I started working with them, creating our own shows, writing them, directing them, producing them. And there are a lot of vaudeville-style shows. And for those watchers who don't know what vaudeville is, it was a form of theater in the early 1900s into like the 1930s, where everyone kind of had a specialty act. They were jugglers, they were magicians, singers, tap dancers, roller skaters, comedians, and they would get on a circuit of theaters and they would travel around for a year doing their specialty act, and people came to that theater to see like 3 hours of just variety performance. So when you see things like Charlie Chaplin and people like Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner kind of came out of that vaudeville humor, but then all the tap dancers, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, were vaudeville dancers as well. So our theater company kind of recreated that 1920s, 1930s vaudeville theater with tap dancing and magic and slapstick. And yeah, I've continued performing around the world. And for a while, I was a clown with Big Apple Circus at Lincoln Center. And now I teach tap because I love tap dancing and I love giving it to other people. I think it's an amazing art form, and I love sharing it with people. It's a fun thing. It's hard to tap dance sad. It's a very happy, joyful thing.
That's very true. When you see people tap, it's a lot of like excitement, and I seen jumps and backflips and a lot of cool stuff that like you would never think like tap dancing was. You did say you was in the Big Apple Circus, and I do remember that. How was that experience? Because like I wanted to go see one of your shows, but then got busy, and then like think I remember was about to go, and then I think it got canceled for rain or weather or something like that. But how was it working with Big Apple Circus?
It was amazing. So I've done theater my whole life, and with theater, you're on a stage, people sit down in the audience, and you kind of ignore that they're there. You don't want to respond. If they're laughing, you try not to respond to their energy. Right. You just continue with the performance. But being a clown in the circus, you're trying to get the audience engaged. So you're allowed to improvise at times with the audience. So that was fun. If there's like something happens and there's a little 5-year-old next to you just belly laughing, I can turn and be like, that was funny, right? And then continue on. So in that regard, it was really cool. But also, Big Apple Circus is one of the few circuses remaining that's a one-ring circus with a dirt floor. There's still a lot of one-ring circuses that travel around. The Vasquez Circus sometimes comes to Queens near Citi Field. There's another one in St. Louis that's still going. But it was a really cool experience to live. We lived in RV trailers. Like I had my own trailer to myself, and you're out in a parking lot. It's raining and freezing, and you have to walk from that trailer to the circus tent, and sometimes because the parking lot's slanted, the water comes through the circus tent, so you're kind of slopping through puddles. And it was... I've grown up in the theater, which is very regimented and strict and rules and regulations and what you can and cannot perform in. And this was kind of like, they paid the ticket price to be here, you got to do it. I met a lot of really cool people from all around the world, jugglers and acrobats and tumblers, and it was a really cool experience. I don't know that I would do it again. I think I did it, enjoyed it, and that was it. I think I'm good. But it was a fun little side trip on my journey through performing.
That's awesome. It looks really fun with what you was doing. Besides your parents, who else like inspired you to wanting to move forward with dancing and tap dancing? Anybody that like inspired you to be like, yes, I want to keep going?
Yeah. So I was very lucky growing up that my high school had a fantastic theater department. It was run by this woman, Sonia Angelo, who she had the philosophy that if someone wanted to be in the musical that year, she wasn't going to say no. Anyone that wanted to be in it, she'd find a place for them. So there were auditions to like find where you were going to be in the show, but she never just cut someone out unless it was for grades. She was a huge inspiration, very motivational. She always said you have to give 110% no matter what you're doing on that stage. If you're in the very back row or the very front, people can see you. They came here to see you, so give everything you got. She was a huge influence. All of my dance teachers from growing up, my very first dance teacher was a guy who grew up as a vaudeville tap dancer, which I think is one reason why that style of tap dancing resonates with me so much. He was very old school, very classic style. And then growing up in high school and into college, all of those dance teachers there as well kept me motivated and interested in dancing. One of my favorite choreographers, was a man named Bob Fosse, who was kind of 60s, 70s creator here in New York. Did Chicago, Cabaret, Sweet Charity. Made a lot of movies too, Liza with a Z and Cabaret, all that jazz. He was so... he changed the way we looked at dance. Everything was so unique and different, which I really loved. He was a huge inspiration to me as well. And now I get really inspired. I just hit 40 this year. Thank you. A lot of eye cream and face cream. But I get inspired now watching a lot of the younger tap dancers because I've kind of gotten complacent. I know what I do well, so I do it. And then I watch these younger tap dancers and I see them doing these cool moves and I'm like, okay, wait, I got to learn that. I can't just continue being stagnant with what I'm doing. I have to learn more. And there's a lot of tap dancers right now that are younger than me that I'm really inspired by. There's a fantastic female tap dancer actually, I'm not going to say female tap dancer because she is a tap dancer. It doesn't matter if she's male or female. Demi Remy, Demiremi. And she is spectacular. Sarah Reich is another one. One of my biggest inspirations in the tap world, currently still alive, is this amazing woman named Dormisha Sumbry Edwards. She is, I would say, one of the best tap dancers we have right now. Footwork is spectacular, style, grace, elegance. musicality. Yeah, those are just to name a few of the people that inspire me.
Okay, that's awesome. I honestly don't know a lot about tap dancing, but I've seen it. I've seen it in movies. I've seen it on TV shows, and I always thought it was cool, but never like pursued it like you have. Um, would you, if you was able to, would you want to be in any of these like Broadway shows since you do a lot of like performing arts and everything? Like, which one would you like want to be in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have never done Broadway. I've done every other aspect of theater, but I've never been cast in a Broadway show. Um, I mean, there were quite a few shows on Broadway before the pandemic hit that I would have loved to have been in. I always wanted to be in Book of Mormon, because it's fun. It's the creators of South Park, so the comedy is really funny. I'm a little too old now because they're playing teenage Mormon boys, and I can't pass as 18 anymore. Yeah, there was a great show not too long ago called Something Rotten here in New York. That was a fun tap show. Well, it wasn't just tap; it was a lot of other things, but I loved that show as well. Yeah, but I also love creating my own material, which was another fun thing about the circus. When you do a show like on Broadway, as a performer, you're just there to create whatever the director and the writer need. Okay. So you can throw in your opinions, but at the end of the day, you're trying to recreate what's on that page and make it the way the director wants it. But there's something so much more gratifying about, in the circus, you create your own act. You create material to showcase you and what you do well. And I've done that most of my career now with Parallel Exit. We've created shows that highlight what we do well, not what somebody else wanted us to do. Okay. And it's so much more gratifying than just kind of being a chess piece on someone else's board that you don't really have any say in. You're just there to make the paycheck and love the art, but it's not your specific specialty. So I love creating my own material. It's challenging, it's frustrating, it's fun, it's exciting. Yeah, I think that's another reason why I love teaching tap, because I could come into this room is where I teach tap, and I could have everything planned in my head, and I think this is what we're going to do for the next hour and a half, and I start moving, and I have the class start moving with me, and I realize they're not at the level that I anticipated. They might be better, or they might not quite be up to what I expected. And then I have to completely shift what we're going to do. I mean, I could just plow through and do whatever it is I wanted to do, but then it's not really giving them a personal experience. It's giving them just a class that I created and do it, and there you go. There's something exciting about looking in the mirror as I'm teaching and seeing behind me the energy. Are they excited? Are they frustrated? Are they getting it? Are they not getting it? And then how do I adjust what I'm doing to match that level? So teaching is a lot of performing. You have to keep that energy up and keep people motivated. And that's kind of been the weirdest thing about teaching online. Teaching on Zoom, I stand in my living room or in a dance studio like this with a camera and a TV monitor, and I can see all the little squares of people taking the class. But normally I can only see from like their waist up. Sometimes they don't even turn the camera on at all because they don't want to be seen. They just want to take the class. So I have no idea what they're doing. I can kind of see it, but I don't know if they're getting it, if they're not getting it. I don't know if they're having fun because I can't see their faces really. So it's been a weird thing of teaching online, having to, I have to keep my own energy up for them, even though I don't know what their energy is. I miss that interaction in the classroom of we're all in this together, and you can feel the energy sag if people start to get frustrated because they're not getting the footwork. Learning tap is really hard. It's a difficult thing because our bodies move. We always do this all day long, but in tap dancing, you're making your feet do these intricate little movements while you're trying to maintain balance. And for someone that's never done it before, it's very tricky. So it is, in kind of a guilty pleasure, it is kind of fun watching a beginner class get frustrated and not know how to do it. Because then I realized now it's my job to make it easier for them. Like, how do I make this not frustrating when I know it will be frustrating? Because it's like learning an instrument. You know, it's never fun in the beginning. Definitely. It's doing the same thing over and over and over, and your fingers don't cooperate with you. So then you have to keep doing it until your fingers get it. So I love that challenge of helping people understand it better, and that's another edge of performing.
Definitely, yeah. I think I think I would be the first one to get frustrated, just because I know like that like there's a rhythm, and I know tap dancing is different from like dancing, because there's like a 1 2 3 or 3 4 5, and tap dancing might be a little similar to that, but you gotta like know which foot you want to step first, because you never know, like, and then some of the classes will just like switch up the foot style, and you're like, wait, I learned this way first, and I know I will get mad, but I know if I want to keep continuing learning, that it will be a easier process to keep learning, keep trying, even after the class, like maybe look at another video to see like if I messed up. But I'm assuming like but I know it'll be fun at the same time. I bet it's a great workout also. Oh, yeah. So yes, I it sucks that like now that COVID's here during this whole pandemic, that you are teaching alone and it's just you, and you're doing all these Zoom classes. But and you miss your peers, which sucks. Like what was the whole process when this pandemic, like what went through your mind when you're just like, I don't have my peoples, like what I'm gonna do now?
Yeah, there were like maybe like 3 weeks where I didn't do anything. I kind of sat in shock, like what is this? What are we doing? What's going to happen? And I saw a few of my friends start teaching online, so I watched their class and I was like, oh, okay, all right, this can be done. It's just something new. So it was a little funny for me because, tap dancers, we have to have a solid wood floor, or at least some kind of hard sound. We can't do it on carpet. But in my apartment building, which is a building for performing artists, we have a dance studio in the basement that we can use. But when everyone in lockdown, they locked the studio because they don't want people in there using it. So I lost that ability to dance in there, and I realized I didn't have any kind of special floor in my apartment other than my wood floor that I could dance on. So I took a shelf off of my bookshelf, and it was about that big. It was tiny. And I, got my computer out, and I said, if anyone wants to take class on Monday, join me on Zoom. And I had this tiny little board, and I was trying to dance on it, and it was weird, and I didn't realize that the sound on Zoom edits out background noise, so I had to change all the settings there, and then realized I had to bring the camera closer to the feet so people could see the feet instead, because now we're looking on little monitors rather than in a big space. There's a lot of trial and error in the beginning. It was frustrating and weird, and it was also hard because a lot of people don't have space in their apartments to take class. So all these people that would take class with me here probably didn't, especially with tap dancing, because nobody wants, banging on the floor with their neighbors underneath. So there was a lot of decline in people that would show up. But then as we kind of sat in this weird world a little longer, people got bored and they needed something to do. So then they started taking classes. They started moving furniture out of the way. They started buying little boards that they could use in their apartment and writing letters to their neighbors saying, I'm sorry, I'm a dancer. I want to take class. If it's too much, let me know. So yeah, it started to get a little easier. And it's now, luckily, places like Broadway Dance Center and then Steps on Broadway, which is another school that I teach at, have created a system now where I can actually come into the studios upstairs, and there's a television monitor, there's a camera, there's a full soundboard. So I'm wearing a headset, and there's a microphone for my feet, and there's someone editing all the sound while we're going. So they've made it into a much easier process for me because I don't have to set up my own equipment. I don't have to worry about my dog walking through the camera shot, which is also part of the fun of teaching from home. But yeah, and it's getting easier. It's getting less daunting because it's a weird feeling, but just a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out what am I doing, how am I doing it. And also for a tap teacher, I have to be able to see the feet to see if you're doing it right or not. And a lot of the times, because people are trying to look in the monitor, they can't lower it enough from me to see their feet because then they can't see what I'm doing. So I kind of have to assume that people are not doing it correctly. If I assume that everyone's doing it correctly, then I'll never make corrections and they'll just keep doing it wrong. So I always have to think in my head, they're probably doing this one little pattern incorrectly. How do I clarify it and make it so much easier for them to hear and understand? And I think it's made me a better teacher because I don't just teach the material and hope they get it. I find that I'm being more articulate with how I give it to them and how I correct it. Maybe they're not getting it wrong and I'm just making bad assumptions, but there is one of them somewhere in that group of 20 that's probably doing it wrong. So it's going to help them in some way. It's I don't know. It's Cuomo just gave us the permission to open up gyms and spaces next week. And I don't know how soon these dance studios will start allowing students in. Even once we do, it'll be like 25% capacity. So it will be a while. We're still going to continue doing these camera classes online. It's the way we're operating now as performers and teachers. And I think it's working. And the other great thing about it, too, is people used to have to come to New York to take class here at Broadway Dance Center. But now someone in London, someone in New Zealand, someone in Chicago, someone in LA can all be in the same class at the same time. So we're reaching a broader audience with this than we would just teaching in the studio, which is really cool. I've met some really amazing dancers that had no idea who I was. They heard that there was a tap teacher teaching at BDC, so they were like, oh, well, I'm free on Thursday, why not? And they would take my class and they realized they liked my style, and now they come back week after week, but they live in New Zealand. So I may never meet them in person, but we've had this chance to connect as a world of dancers. It's been really cool.
That's awesome. That's cool that you could, with all this technology, you can say that you're able to reach out to other countries to like just show your work. That's really amazing. And thanks for everybody that joins his classes, because I know it's not easy as it is right now, but you got to make some things work. Yeah. So you said you traveled. What state that you felt like was like the best experience like you had? I don't know if New York's gonna top it, but what state you had like man, I will come back here anytime?
Well, I've been very lucky that I've been able to travel not the whole world, but I've been traveling a lot in Europe and here in the U.S. I love Boston. I know New Yorkers that's like the don't say that, but I did like Boston. It was a cool city. I'm from Texas, so anytime I get a chance to go back to Texas, I love the food, I love the energy, I love the people. One of my favorite places I've ever performed in was Germany. I was there for 2 years performing in cities throughout Germany, and I really loved being there, mainly because it was in the middle of Europe. So you could take a train any direction and end up in another cool country very quickly. You can go to Amsterdam or then go down to Italy, go across to France, or it was go over to Prague. It was a great place to work and travel around while I was there. I'd go back in a heartbeat. It's been a fun journey. That's to me, I think one of the best things about being a performer is you a lot of times you're paid to go to these cool places. They pay you to get there. They pay you while you're there. you work 2 hours a day, you do a 2 hour show, and then you're done. So, like, I think back on all my travels. I've been to Athens and Paris and Germany, Spain, and all of these places I was performing 2 hours a night, and then the rest of the time I was just there as a tourist, being paid to be there. So a lot of times, if someone says, "Do you want to go on a vacation?" I'm like, "Oh wait, I have to pay to go somewhere?" No, I'm not. I don't pay to go to Spain. You pay me to go there and perform. So that's kind of been the best thing about being a performer. You get to travel and see places, meet people, eat food, see the culture, hear the music. And every place, even in the States, is so different. Texas from Boston to Oregon, there's so many different aspects to the people and the energy that you encounter. And I love it. I thrive on it. It's been probably the hardest part of being in lockdown. I love to travel. I love seeing new places, new people, new cultures, and being stuck in a one-bedroom apartment in Hell's Kitchen. It's been a little scraping the walls with my fingernails, but I'm getting through it. We're gonna make it through, and it's. But you know what? Every place that I've ever been, I look at it and I think, but it's not New York. Nothing ever feels this good. New York is a different feeling from anywhere else in the world. I was in Berlin, Munich for a while, and it has a similar feel. It's similar, but it's still like things close down at 11 o'clock at night, as opposed to New York, where you're like everything is just bustling all night long. I miss that. When I'm not in New York, I miss that energy. It's a very different energy here, the good energy, and I'm sad that we're in the state that we're in right now. So many businesses are struggling to stay open, and the theaters are struggling to figure out what's going on. But I know New York's going to get through it. New York gets through everything, and it's just a matter of one foot after another and getting the city back up and running. And I know we will, because it's New York. New York!
Yeah, we're definitely New York strong, and we'll get there. It's just going to take some time. We live in a crazy time, but that's awesome that you get to travel to all these places. Hopefully, I'll get to see those amazing places also. Before we end the show, anything inspirational you'd like to tell the viewers, and where can they find you also so they can possibly join your beginners class?
Well, using whatever I do in my life as an inspirational thing, I would say, as a theater performer, you never want to limit yourself to one thing. You never want to be a singer. You never want to be a tap dancer. You have to do it all. You have to sing and act and tap dance and be willing to do other forms of dance and maybe even juggle and maybe ride a unison. The more you learn, the more you put into your bag of tricks as a performer, the easier it is to use you as a performer because you're more versatile. You're not just that singer. And I think the same applies to life, to anyone that feels stuck or feels like they're working the same job day after day after day. Throw in a little loop in there. Throw in ukulele lessons. Throw in a yoga class to change up the rhythm, or throw in a tap class. Because I do teach both at Broadway Dance Center and at Steps on Broadway. And you can go to both of their websites. If you just Google either Broadway Dance Center or Steps on Broadway. And I have classes throughout the week, beginner, basic level. And not only me, but there's a lot of fantastic teachers in the city that teach absolute beginner workshops. And you can even go to YouTube and find how to learn to tap. One of my favorite tap dancers that teaches online, Shelby Kaufman, has great beginner classes. You don't have to have any experience, and she'll kind of walk you through on YouTube. Or you can come online with us and dance at these studios.
That's awesome. That's very inspirational. Just keep the drive going, keep grinding for what you want, and always expand your horizon. Never stay limited, because if you stay limited, you might not go as far, from what I've understood in the performing world. But that's great. I appreciate you coming on the show today. where can they find you social media wise and anything else?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Brent McBeth. It's MCBETH, like the play without the A. And I'm not great at publicizing on social media. I don't like putting myself. I like showing my dogs and flowers, and I like showing other people dancing, but I'm not great at putting myself on there, which I have to learn to be better. Because in this day and age, it's all about promoting yourself online. But yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, doing the social thing.
While staying distant.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to check out some dance classes, definitely check out Brent or anybody else. You can find me on Instagram mostly. It's _official, and you can follow MDMC Entertainment on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
You guys have a good rest of your day. Bye.